So this one is potentially going to be one of my most exciting videos to make because today we're going to be talking about the Leica M11 after 15,000 images. With Leica M11, I pretty much experienced it all, from amazing images and trips that I took with this camera, and through some of the frustrating situations with crashes and some of the firmware updates that I have installed in this camera. So I'm also going to be talking about some accessories and settings that are going to help you to unlock the most potential for this camera. And if you stick around until the end of the video, I am going to be sharing how you can download the free preset pack that I have created to edit some of the color and black and white conversions coming from the Leica M11. This one is going to be an exciting episode, so stick around. Now, prior owning my first Leica digital body, I actually owned Leica glass, and I would actually adapt my Leica glass through an adapter on my Sony cameras. And some of you guys know I've been shooting with Sony for over 12 years, and I continue to use my Sony cameras. So I think that this is one of the main reasons why a lot of people are gonna wanna shoot with this camera, the glass. When it comes to options for the M system, I think that it is probably one of the mounts with the utmost options, because you can also convert LTM lenses, pre and mount, Leica 3-mount lenses via the 1mm, adapter that adds no bulk to the lenses, and I own a lot of those vintage glasses as well. And also the second one is going to be the size of these bodies. Look at the size of these bodies. They are very, very minimal. And what you see right now is the kit that I actually carry with me almost every single day. Actually, every single day, because I may forget my phone or wallet, but I never forget my camera. All right, what is it like to shoot with a Leica M11? And I'm gonna share my experience shooting with this camera for street photography, travel, and portrait. Now, when it comes to street photography, I like to keep things very, very simple. And what I do is I use the zone focusing method. So pretty much I lock up my aperture, usually at f11 at a determined distance, and then I set up my shutter speed at around 250 or 500, depending the light. And by gauging the distance, I go to town. That's the way I like to shoot street photography, usually with a 28mm or a 35. But also, I may actually switch to a fast 50mm lens, so 50mm f1.2 Noctilux, or even the Summilux 50mm f1.4. When that happens, what I do, and you can see those images right now, I put the VisoFlex on the camera, and I take my time to nail that focus and that nice shallow depth of field. Now let's talk about travel photography and the casual photography. And the focal length of choice is going to be usually a 35. Or recently I've been using, like I mentioned before, this Leica Summicron 40mm f2, because it is super tiny and actually fast f2. So when it comes to that, I like to have my ISO in auto and my shutter speed also in auto if we're talking about during the day. So pretty much, I go aperture priority mode. Now, as the light starts diminishing, that's when I would actually regain control, and usually I manual focus, every single picture. And what is it like to shoot portraits with the Leica M11 and a rangefinder system? Most portraits I've taken with this camera had happened actually with natural light, and I find that once again liberating. But the one thing that I do is I don't use the rangefinder. In this situation, I put the VisoFlex for several reasons. I like to use, my aperture wide open, and I like to shoot with fast lenses. And the lenses of choices that I use for portraiture are gonna be 50mm, such as the Leica Noctilux f1.2 or the Summilux f1.4. I also shoot with 75mm lenses, and the one that I've been digging a lot, specifically when I travel, is going to be the Foglander 75mm f1.9 Ultron. And I also have one that's a little bit bigger, which is the Foglander 75mm f1.5 that produces an amazing image. And take a look at this picture right here. The bokeh is unreal. So when it comes to portrait, I like to have that VisoFlex because, like I mentioned before, I like that background separation, and I just want to make sure that that eye is going to be in focus. So I magnify, I set up this button to my magnification, punch in to the maximum, and then I can nail my focus. Now with the 75s and the 90mm lenses, it's gonna be more challenging because you have such a small room of error, and one of the main reasons why I like to have that VisoFlex. And to me the deal was pretty easy because I am a person that has to travel a lot for work, And when actually traveling with my fastest glass and my mirrorless camera, that entails a lot of volume and a lot of weight. Now, to put into perspective, take a look at this Leica M11 attached with a Noctilux 50mm f1.2, which is a reissue of a vintage lens, versus a modern 50mm f1.2 attached to my Sony A7CR, which is my current Sony setup that I love and continue to use. Now, take a look at my options when it comes to the Leica M system. I usually like to travel with a 28 or 21mm. I bring a 50, sometimes I slide a 35 for kind of like everyday shooting, or this little tiny Summicron C 40mm f2 lens, which is a fantastic lens, and it is the lens that it is attached to this camera now every single day for my casual photography. I may also bring a 90mm, you know, from time to time, but all these lenses are gonna fit in this little tiny bag that you see right here. Whereas if I wanna bring all the Sony options, you know, I'll be talking about a lot of weight. And when it comes to walking around, getting older, the lightweight to me is a deal sealer. So what does it feel leaving out of focus, IBIS, and all that AI automation behind? And to be honest with you, all that stuff is actually liberating. Not having IBIS, you know, it had made me more mindful of my posture, and not having out of focus, may not shoot that quantity volume, but I think that everything that I shoot right now, it's a little bit more of quality. And to be honest with you, I'm willing to sacrifice missing an image here and there, but actually having everything to do with that particular image. And the rangefinder experience is like practicing, you know, target shooting. It's all about gratification shooting with the system, and it's all about kind of like proving to yourself that you have the skills that it takes to focus, to hold your camera, and, you know, enjoy a system like this one. So let me share right now a little bit of my experience with the ergonomics of this camera. And before I got this camera, I had the Leica Q2, and I got used to that ergonomic. And one of the things that I actually do with all my Leica cameras, I put one of these thumb grips. Now, the ones that I have here are the ones from Leica, but you can get some cheaper ones. I hold the camera like this, kind of like a deck of cards. It's really easy to hold the camera like this, in my opinion, with this thumb grip. It really assists you a lot. Most specifically when you have, you know, some light lenses like this one. But also, as you can see, I also have a grip, which is something that I may put if I am going to be making my setup a little bit heavier. And I really love this grip because it really does make the camera very comfortable with larger lenses. And usually when I shoot with super fast lenses, you know, I like to have the VisoFlex on top so I can nail that focus at f1.4. But for the most part, this is how I use the camera, bare bone, just, you know, this thumb grip right here. And I am very happy with the ergonomics. Now, before I continue, I do want to talk about some of the struggles that I have to deal with at the beginning. There weren't a lot of freezes, but the camera will lock up from time to time, you know, and get in the spinning wheel. But things got really bad last year when I actually purchased the Blackchrome Summilux 50mm f1.4. For some reason, every time that I would put that particular lens, my camera would freeze after 50, 70 pictures. And Leica released a new firmware version, which I believe is the 2.02. And since that firmware, I haven't had any single issue ever again. Now let's talk about the Leica colors, or the color science of the M11. This sensor will always have kind of like too much magenta for my taste, specifically on the skies. Now on my Leica SL3, this is not the situation. So I don't know why we can have the same color sign of the SL3. I'd be really happy. And here are gonna be my final thoughts shooting with a Leica M11 for more than a year. So, like I mentioned before, one of the reasons why I continue to gravitate towards the system, it's a really easy to pick up system. I actually managed to configure my favorite setup with this 40mm Summicron lens, and the bodies are really small, great for travel, can get fast lenses, you know, in a small footprint. And to be honest with you, the manual experience in engaging with the image yourself, being you the creator of the image, is something that really makes me look forward every single day. I do not go out without a camera, whether it is during the day, whether it is at night, whether it is with my wife, friends. This camera is actually with me at all times. Now, are there things that I would like to see improved in this camera? And the answer is going to be yes. There are going to be three main things that I would like to see. The number one thing that I would like to see is going to be IBIS. And I know that some Leica purists may start hating me right now because of this, but to be honest with you, the fact that we can have IBIS and improve the lower light performance is something that I would like to see in this camera, because it would make this camera much more powerful at night. Even though it has excellent low light performance, you know, you cannot push the shutter speed too low. The next thing that I would like to see is some sort of flip out screen, and this is where the purists are gonna hate me again, but hear me out first. If you take a look at the Leica M6 right here, we have this film cover. Now this film cover has a dial right there, which is, you know, for you to rate your film, the ISO of your film. Now imagine if Leica would make Leica M12, for example, with the same system, whereas, you know, we close the flap and you have a dial there, could be an ISO dial or exposure compensation, whatever, or you could even configure the dial. And when you open the flap, kind of like the Fuji Expert 3, you have the screen right there. That is just my recommendation. I don't know, we could have the buttons on the flap itself, or they could be on the side. I don't know, but that could actually be a really good way to actually bring a flip out screen without making the camera too bulky, or kind of like changing the signature of the design of this camera. Last but not least, the other thing that I would like to see in this camera is the Leica could actually bring back the color science of the Leica MA. I've seen some images from the MA, I've seen some images from the M240, and even the Leica M10 that I shot with has a better color science than the Leica M11. Also, the SL3 has a way better color science. But once again, these are not things that hinders me from enjoying this camera and choosing this camera forever as my everyday carry. And just like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I have prepared a curated selection of presets that I've created after shooting over 50,000 images with a Leica M11 for more than a year. Now, to find these presets, go to my Instagram account at Gaston Shutters, and link is gonna be in the bio. Since you're there, add me up on Instagram because I am going to be offering you support if you need any help with these presets. But just to let you know, most of my presets don't include exposure or white balance. So, you know, you can work with your own exposure and your own white balance. But again, should you have any question, you know, hit me up a message on Instagram, and you're gonna find color and black and white presets as well. So guys, this one is gonna be the end of the video. As always, if you have any particular questions regarding the Leica M11, let me know in the comments down below. And as always, I will see you in the next video.